Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. Good morning. See a lot of familiar faces. Um, yeah, so we're kind of winding down. I was just looking forward after this. I've got curriculum for three more, but it looks like two of them might be able to be combined pretty easily. So it might even be me too. Um, and then, I mean, if you guys have something, great. If not, then we're kind of it for the. I think I'm fine. Like it's mentioned last week, I'm kind of caught up on getting everything posted. And it's interesting. The surfing ones are doing pretty well as far as views and stuff like that. I'm really happy with the number. I mean, we're pushing 750 views on this stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it'd be interesting to see, even just what region of the world this is being viewed from. And trust me, it's not me, on auto loop, trying to drive numbers up. so it's not coming from, Fresno.
Sure, Dave. Sure, it's not you.
We've been talking about surfing. We've been talking about all the different types of surfing. And so there's even more different types of boards to kind of sort of, to go out and, and greet these waves and sort of finding the right board that is going to work with a particular type of break or a particular type of wave shape, and especially size of surfer. I tend to, I've always kind of migrated to the longer longboard style. I'm not a real aggressive surfer as far as attacking a wave and just, slashing turns and aerials and all kinds of stuff coming off of everything. I'm more of a cruiser. I get up on my board, just kind of point it in a direction. I'll throw some nice little giant slalom type turns in there and just be happy. And we'll talk about what type of board versus a short board, different types of stuff like that. But this opening picture is kind of how they all start. So blanks, these are all what they call surfboard blanks. And basically what it is, these manufacturers will cut a stringer, which is the sort of the wood portion, or you kind of, in this case, you see a line going down the center of the board. You cut it kind of the thickness, and it'll go sort of talk about the rocker, and all kind of incorporate all those things, and obviously bigger than the final shape of the board. And then they lay it off into a particular sort of mold and inject a certain type of foam around it. And it's like a polyester foam. It adheres really good to fiberglass. And then it's up to the shaper to go in there and carve out. It's almost like a sculptor going in there and saying, hey, there's my final board that I'm looking for, and shaping it down to it and everything. So morning, Afton, and welcome. And so that's kind of what the way things start out. And like I said, polyester foam and wood. Now there could be different types of woods. The stringer can be different widths, different configurations, and you can kind of see you got some long boards in there. Looks like some shorter boards, all different basic shapes. Now they're just going to be basic, and then the shaper is going to come along and he's going to cut it to the final lengths, shapes, and so forth. And you'll see these longboard surfers are smaller waves. Now they can get out of big waves. I've gotten out of big waves on a longboard before too, but generally you got a big floaty, big it planes really high in the water type board, easy to catch waves. So that's why you can catch these smaller waves with a longboard, and you'll kind of see what it's all about. Rough start to the Anyway, some kind of cool stuff there. Like I said, that was a little bit out of out of turn, a little out of sequence, but we're talking about just a longboard. One of the things that you'll notice that they're pretty flat. There's not a whole lot of rocker to them, not a whole, especially nose rocker. There's so much flotation to them that it's not as hard to keep the nose up out of the water, so that you like paddling out and even catching waves, or you're not having to push a whole lot. You're kind of skimming along the top of the water, so it makes it a lot easier. Let's get into some other. So this is kind of what I should have probably had this on here before, but this is basically some shaped blanks, different lengths, all the way down to the top one there, which is about a 510. And you can kind of see the rocker in the front of it. These things they're going to be very quick, another quick turning, and so forth. The longer the board gets, a little slower turns, but you're going to be able to catch some smaller waves earlier. Like a lot of times you can actually even catch green waves, which basically a wave that hasn't even broke yet, and you can jump in and you can get into them. So that's kind of an interesting one. All right, so we were talking about stringers and different configurations of stringers.
Can I interrupt for 1 second and ask a question on the last one?
Yeah, go ahead.
What's the weight difference between the short one and the longest one right there? How much pound difference, ounce difference? What do we differentiate between those?
That's a good question, Travis. I haven't weighed any of my boards. If I had to guess, 10 pounds, something like that, at the most. And then they're probably, you can get a small board, which is basically going to be half that. You can get a big old monster longboard. In fact, that's going to be, the next board I shape, I want it to be like 11 foot. I'm really looking for, I have a 10 foot. The first board I ever shaped was a 9.6 longboard. And I just surfed the heck out of it. Right now that board doesn't have any fiberglass on it because I was going to reshape it. And then I shaped a 10-foot board that I kind of messed it up. I wish the tail on it is too narrow. But and it's the ugliest board I ever made. but I've also surfed on it a lot, but it's really hideous. And but yeah, I would they could be right in that range, Travis. And I think that now you can the first board I shaped, I knew that I was going to be surfing out in Washington, and like I said, it was about 9'6", and I laid it up pretty heavy. In other words, when I shaped it, it was pretty thick, and I did an extra layer of fiberglass in there, because the last thing I wanted to do is shape this thing, get it all done, take it out in the surf, and snap it. And so it was a little bit on the beefy side. I wanted to just make sure, and it did. It lasted. I was talking with someone the other day, and I figured I probably got 1,000 waves out of that board. And so, and some of them big, some of them small, some of them, not so good, didn't come out of them very good. And somehow it hung in there. So, but the configuration that board, the first one that I did, was also a triple stringer like this one. Now, you can see that it's got a tail kick on the back piece, kind of there. It's like a very nicely finished off tail. Has a wood blank plug off the end, just to kind of help protect the foam and everything. Really beautiful middle stringer there that's got a laminate look to it. So they're really, really amazing. This is a very nicely would be a really nice blank to go off of. And the other thing too is you just look at right here. This is a fin box right in the center, and that's where the fin's going to go. And so he's just got a classic single fin, really nice board. So that would be a great one. Some of the other types, balsa wood and chambered. It's almost looked like an aircraft wing right there. You see the one on the left. It's actually a wood chamber, and then put laminate over the top, like a thin laminate. And so just to try to minimize the amount of weight, kind of what we were talking about, Travis. And then the other one you could kind of see is more of a balsa style. And yeah, and kind of this, what you sort of end up with is something that is like a beautiful piece of furniture. I don't know if I could surf on that thing. Now I would, I wouldn't even want to, do up a bunch of wax on the deck of that thing. It's like really, really nice. All right, so this is a little segment here on your typical, looks like a single stringer, sort of egg-shaped classic, probably a 9-foot longboard. But this is what it looks like from start to finish, kind of give you an idea. Eight six. So I thought that's a really good one. You can kind of see it, pretty labor intensive. A lot of different steps to it, all the way from laying up well, obviously shaping the thing, just getting it to where you're going to get the final shape that you want. Now, when you start out with a blank, and you can have a blank and say, okay, you know what, I want this. I don't want very much rocker. So on the top deck, you can plane out a lot of the nose and tail. And then when you plane the bottom, you can plane out the middle. So you're kind of flattening that blank. And so you could do vice versa. And you say, you know what, I want to gain a little bit more rocker out of this. I want a wide bore, or I want to, maybe I want a narrow tail, different type of tail configurations. Maybe I want a really wide nose on it for a nose rider, that kind of thing. But depth. So the shaper really can incorporate a lot of characteristics into it. And then when you start getting into glassing, first of all, you lay down your colors. You can lay down your colors, any graphics that you want in there, which is really kind of interesting. And you think, oh man, how they do the graphics and stuff on this stuff? Well, there's what you use is like rice paper, and it's very, very thin. And the way that I've done the graphics on mine is I've taped rice paper to a sheet of printer paper, and I've just printed my graphics out going through just a regular printer, and comes out. I peel it off. I kind of cut around it, and I lay that in underneath my fiberglass. And then once the resin hits it, that rice paper, it becomes invisible, and all that's left is your graphic. And then you have fiberglass over the top that just shows through, and it looks awesome. And then you start out with your resin, or your first layer, and generally most surfboards will just have a single layer of fiberglass on the bottom, because you would think it's like, well, the bottom gets beat up. No, it's the top, because that's where you are, and that's where you're falling, and that's where you're coming down with your elbow or a knee or something, and slamming into it. And so the way I lay it up is I will usually lay out a full layer of fiberglass on the top, and then I'll do a portional layer sort of in the middle where I'm going to be most of the time, which is kind of from maybe the back 2/3 of the board. The nose, I typically will just leave a single layer, but I'll put a second layer inside there just to minimize the weight, but yet, try to protect it a little bit from myself. And you'll lay that in there with what your typical laminating resin, which is just basically resin. But resin, the surfboard resin, it's almost a little bit tacky, even when it's dry. So then over the top of that, once you get all your layers in, then you come across with another layer of resin that's called a sanding resin. And you put this, it's sort of a wax sort of compound in the laminating resin, and it creates it makes the resin a lot more, almost, I don't want to say brittle, but hard. It's really hard. So you can sand it. And then that's when you get all your imperfections, and you get all the sanding and gloss. And then you come over the final with a gloss resin. And that's what can also be sanded really well, but you're starting to get down to really fine sandpaper with it. And then even rubbing it out with rubbing compound and polishing compound and that sort of thing. And that's kind of how it finishes off. But so that's kind of the steps, but there's a lot to it.
What were the stencils? He had two, I don't know, I would call them half moon or elliptical stencils he was putting on there. Was that just to get different spacing in there? I was trying to figure that one out.
Yeah, and what they'll have, Travis, is like a template. And what they will make a template on a shape that they really like, and then they can modify that. So in other words, it's sort of a half oval, I guess, look to it.
Yeah.
probably used like a French curve. So in other words, you put it on the front of the board, and you could start off by your overall length. Say, okay, I've got a 9.6 blank. I want my finished product to be a 9.3. So you kind of measure off where that 9.3 is going to be, and you kind of take, this is the portion of the board I want to take, and then you kind of but you say, okay, but I want a little bit wider nose. So you put that template and you cheat it off the stringer just a little bit to make it a little bit wider, or you could cheat it across the stringer to make the nose a little bit. And so that right off the get-go, you're starting to become balanced on both sides of the stringer so that it's the same and kind of mirroring each other. And so that's what the template was for. He probably has a nose template and then even a tail template. And that's what he's kind of going with. You may even shift it out at an angle to get just sort of a different type of curve, but it's sort of a guide to kind of start getting everything evened out. But yeah, it's to be honest with you, I love shaping surfboards. It's so much fun. It's just, you just really kind of become one with it, and it's really cool.
Can I ask the maybe the elephant in my room? What does a pre-made surfboard cost, and what does a shaped surfboard cost?
Okay, so if you had to go and buy this board from this guy, which obviously a professional shaper, you're probably looking at $1,000, close to maybe $1,200. You can get a custom board and you go in and say, hey, this is what I want. I want this and this and this and this. And it's probably going to run you pretty close about that. So, but you can go and get, like if you went and bought this blank, it would probably run you $200.
Mm-hmm.
And then the resin and the glass and all that stuff, you're probably looking at maybe another $150 for that. And then you get a fin, which is probably maybe, depending on how big and your fin configuration, could be anywhere from $50 to $150 roughly in there. So if you make your own boards, you're probably looking close to half, because a lot of this, like I said, most of this is going to be labor. A lot of this is going to be labor. And even though these guys are really fast, they're pretty fast at it. Because I don't know if you noticed, but he was doing all this, and of course he was all sped up and everything. But then all of a sudden there's this board that had all these different colors in there. And it's like, what do you do to the bottom of this thing? Well, that's because there was another board so he's doing 2 or 3 or 4 boards at a time for each one of these steps. Like when he's doing the shaping, he's probably shaping like 4 or 5 boards. And then to come along, he's actually, okay, I'm gonna be glassing today, and I'm gonna glass this board, I'm gonna glass this board, and while this board's setting up, I'm gonna be glassing another board. And then he gets set up for the sanding process and all that good stuff. So there's a number of boards coming through there. For me, oh my gosh, it takes a couple weeks just to do a board, and because I'm sitting there, okay, I'm glassed up now. I'm just walking around waiting for this thing to set up for an hour or two, and before I can come back and do my next step and stuff. But yeah, it's a good question. But I love it. I really I've been wanting to shape another board. Well, Sam and you and I were talking about that a year or two ago.
Yep.
That we'd love to get into doing something and putting together. But we got to get you in a kayak too. So, too many
true. Are there surfboard kayak combo? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, surfboard, kayak, snowshoe.
Actually, I was. Sorry, what was that, Travis?
Nothing. I'm making a bad joke.
Actually, I was kind of wondering about the connection between a surfboard and a windsurfer. Is there a major structural difference, Dave? Do you have a clue as to whether that's the case?
No, they're very similar. They're just, the boards are going to be just a sort of different shape. I mean, you can buy sailboard blanks. You can buy stand-up paddleboard blanks. And I've actually thought about both of those at certain times. I would really love to shape a stand-up paddleboard for surfing. I think it'd be great. I think it'd be a lot of fun. So this is kind of, there's a top and a bottom, and then you can kind of see it for the profile of a typical longboard. A lot of times, and like I said, my mistake that I made, the last board I made, my tail is too narrow. But I've gotten a lot of good waves out of it. And I tend to make my nose a little bit wider too, just to catch a little bit easier to catch waves and stuff. Typical longboard out in the water, just nose riding, and that's kind of thing. It looks like you shouldn't be able to do that. Looks like if you just put all your weight on the front right there, it would just purl and you would just go right over the front. But if you look at what is happening behind him, that he's putting such an angle on that wave that the wave is pouring over onto the back of his board, and it's equalizing. So he's actually just as much weight on the back just by water as on the back as he has on the front. And if you almost think of like a small palm board or something like that, he's just kind of riding this little platform out on the front. So it's it's sort of a bizarre looking thing, but I've never been able to do it. I've never gotten that good. I just, like I said, I just get up, cruise, and just, love it. So, all right. So big wave guns, they're sort of considered a longboard because some of these boards are really long, maybe even longer than a longboard, but you can kind of see they're narrow, and they're designed to be extremely fast. As they're long for that speed, but they're also shaped for that speed too. And this one here is probably at least a 10-foot board, maybe could be even longer. And that's for this kind of surfing. And because once you drop in, now the race is on. Can I get out in front of that wave that is going to break and is chasing me? So because there's not a whole lot of tube riding with these kind of waves, they just come and they just slam. And this is one at the time was one of the biggest waves ever ridden. But I think a couple of waves since then have been bigger than this one. But this is basically, like I was saying, trying to outrun the wave. And this is kind of good. And they're so big, you can't really catch them without being towed in by a jet ski. So you can see it, here it comes. And you can see that, kind of trouble he would be in if at that speed. And then because a little slow motion, you can see the jet ski pulls him in, gets him in the wave, and then gets out. And now the jet ski becomes safety. For some reason, let's just say he falls right here, which would be nasty because he would just be part of it.
How fast do you think he's going right there? That's slow motion, but
it looks like he's going like crazy fast, but he's probably doing 30, something like that.
That's crazy fast.
Yeah. Well, in the on the crust of water, with nothing generating other than gravity, it's the sensation is really, really amazing. You feel like you're going to speed. But, and it's kind of interesting. I don't know what is causing this, but on every board that I've ever made, and it has to do with the angles of my fins, I think, that I put on it. when I've gotten like a big wave and I've gotten up a lot of speed, my fins start humming. You can hear it, and it's a certain speed. They start singing to me, and it's like, and I'm like, oh, and I know I'm in a good wave. So it's just like, yeah, thank you. So it's kind of fun. Yeah, let me just get through a few more. We got so short boards. You can kind of see just they're really the sports car of surfing. Just quick. They're harder to catch waves, but if you're a good enough surfer and you're light enough, yeah, you jump right in. But yeah, very quick turns. Here's some examples. This guy at one time was probably the best surfer out there, but yeah, I remember when he was a little kid, he was just turning it up. But you see the one wave, he dropped into a really big wave, and he was on a completely different type board than his other ones. There is aerials and all kinds of stuff like that. Which I've done aerials before. I've never landed anything. Usually I'm upside down or on my back or flying through the air. I get the first half of them. I do amazing. I've just never stuck the second half. And a lot of times it's not on purpose. But
the first half probably wasn't on purpose either. So.
No, not at all. Not at all. I didn't mean to get that high off the wave and there and looking down at everything. And usually my board's right below me and trying to figure out how I'm gonna land without going through it. But I think we got a couple more here. So big wave tube. This is gosh, I can't remember but you look at the thickness of that wave, the amount of water that's it's astonishing, really. Get down inside something like that. And here's a little bit more on, let's see what we're doing on time. This is actually North Shore of Oahu, I think 2018, just in competition. Actually, I went to this. Didn't participate, but I was here in 2012. I was working over there. Obviously, it's all about getting barrels and maneuvering outside the wave. it's interesting. You know, we were talking about Travis, you were asking about the weights and stuff like that. And these boards, you know, competition boards like that, now they'll show up and, you know, obviously they're sponsored and everything. And these board manufacturers basically they'll show up like 7 or 8, 9 boards that are exactly the same. But the layup on them is so thin and light, you know, just for quickness and dropping in everything. They're not very durable. I mean, these guys break them all the time. And so they may go through a half a dozen boards during a competition over a course of a few days. So yeah, and but kind of interesting stuff. Totally different lifestyle. And then the waves in Hawaii are really fast. I mean, they come in and boy, they're moving pretty quick. Got a couple more here.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
So how do you control speed? I know you said you go faster, you're trying to go faster and faster. Can you control speed by your body placement on the board?
Yes. Yeah. If you put pressure on your back foot, it'll slow you down. It'll stall you a little bit. And then if you put more pressure on the nose, then you'll speed up. You can kind of see, you know, if you're kind of visualizing that, if you put weight on the back, it's going to bog. It's going to just slow things down. But if you get up on your nose, it's going to want to plane, and you're going to have less resistance as far as diving your board deep in the water, and that will slow you down. So a lot of these guys will drop into this curl, and they'll be doing that to slow themselves down it's like, oh, this thing's starting to break, and they'll put pressure on the nose and accelerate out the tube then, for sure. So there's a lot of different fin configurations. Fins have evolved quite a bit, even the way that they place them. Like, so I'm just looking at these. So the board on top, the fin up on top and off the left. So that fin looks like it's glassed on. So in other words, it's fiberglassed right onto the board. And, you know, so it's permanent. It's a done deal. All the other ones, all the other ones, they're removable. You see the fin tracks, they're sitting down in there, and you could put bigger fins on, smaller fins. The one on the bottom on the left, the triple fin, that one actually has all different types of configurations there. You can have a single fin if you want, take the 2 little thruster fins off, and you just have a single fin. You can take all of those off and just put a twin fin on there. It's got slots for, or you can put 5 fins on there if you want. I mean, so you could all different types of. Now, these are just kind of 4 different typical. Now, nowadays, the triple fin seems to be the big. I have a single fin board, and also all the rest of them are triple fins that I have. And might ask like, well, what's the difference? What do they do and stuff? So I'll just kind of read this real quick. So single fins are most common found on long boards, sort of a classic original style fin setup. It's considered outdated by some, but I still like it. I think I don't do enough performance stuff for it to really make a big difference in my surfing style. But it's still appreciated by others because of its it brings a different feel while riding the wave. They are usually long boards, long and wide enough to provide control over the surfboard on its own. So usually these fins are going to be bigger. They're going to be pretty decent size. Dan used to give me a bad time because I have my 10-foot board. I've got a big monster fin on that thing. He says, yeah, I hate seeing that thing when your board's upside down. It just looks like, you know, there's a big fin in the water with us. And so he hates it, but I think it's just him giving me a bad time. Twin fins. They became popular at the end of the 70s and the beginning of the 80s. At the time, the world discovered how twin fins offered extra maneuverability and speed over riding a single wave or a single fin. So, and you kind of see how these guys are cutting across the wave a little bit. That you're going to have one fin that's deeper in the water than the other one. If you had just a single fin, you may not be getting your full bite in the water, but so you put one on each side, so you're going right. One of these is going to kick in a little bit more. You're going the left, then one's going to kick in a little bit more. And then this configuration is, like I said, pretty. It's currently the most popular fin setup for most surfers, from beginners to experts. Frustrated with the fact that twin fins wouldn't hold enough in bigger waves. In the middle of the back of the tail provides more stability, maneuverability. The thruster setup has played a huge part of the evolution of performance surfing, making many radical maneuvers possible. So this is sort of the go-to setup, and you're going to see most boats are going to have this. And then the quad fin or core fin setup gets a little bit, or both the characteristics of twin fins and thruster setup. Quads can be great in small waves, especially the rear fins are further up the surfboard and closer to the rails. This helps generate speed even in weak waves, and helps to do quick turns, a bit like a twin fin would, but with extra control. So that's kind of what you're trying to gain. And there also is going to be a little bit of angle. You see the one thruster fin on the far left. It's got a little bit of angle on that, which also kind of kicks in a little bit. And I have a feeling that's where I'm getting the out of my boats. It's just the angles on these things, and I don't know what it is, but it's kind of interesting. Got a couple more minutes here. I'm going to try to blow through this, and then a little bit about boogie boards. And
my name is Ben, and for Surf Dome, we're looking at what size bodyboard do you need? And bodyboarding has been around since the dawn of surfing. Indigenous Polynesians rode wooden alayas, which were basically a crude form of this bodyboard you can see in front of us. They usually rode on their bellies or their knees, or very rarely on their feet. In 1971, legendary surf inventor Tom Moray took the alaya design, tweaked it, and made his boogie board from polyethylene foam. Being cheap, lightweight and durable, it changed the game, and his boogie board sold millions. For beginners, bodyboards offer the ideal entry point into surfing. You can learn the thrill of catching waves without the dangers of being hit by a big surfboard, either fiberglass or a soft one. Also, they remain cheap, they remain lightweight, and they remain durable. You can carry them around easily enough. Don't be fooled though, these aren't just for kids. The best bodyboarders ride the heaviest waves in the world, catching waves like pipeline and chopu on these small bits of kit. A word of warning though, often many people buy bodyboards from a local kiosk at the seaside or at the beach. They're cheap, they've got no hard slick on them like this one here, you can feel the spine of it, and they really basically are a throwaway design. At the end of the beach, the lifeguards are picking them up by the bucketfuls. With these bodyboards, they're durable, they're tough, they last, they're better for catching waves, and they save you money. As for the right side, the bodyboard should either reach up to your belly button when standing on the floor, or it should fit between your chin and the top of your knees when you hold it in front of you. For kids, a 6-year-old will start with a board around 34 inches long and add an inch on the board for every year. A 10-year-old, for example, will use a 38-inch board. So this is a 36-inch board, soft tech, kind of right for an 8-year-old, perfect size for starting. Often with the kids' boards as well, the leash will come with it, already installed, and that means that you can attach it to them, they won't lose it. With the adult kind of boards, often you'll need to buy the leash separately and insert it, which is a simple affair. But yeah, that's all basically it really. A bodyboarder should add swim fins to their arsenal when taking to the waves. They're a great way to propel you onto the waves early, and mean you can patrol the lineup using less energy. They're a real lifesaver.
Yeah, so that's about it. We saw a bunch of boogie boarding, some segments and stuff like that, some footage and everything. A lot of people just do it. I mean, and you just get a pair of fins, get a board, go out, have fun, get a wetsuit that's going to be appropriate for conditions of your area and stuff, and go have fun. That's what it's really all about. Any other thoughts? Anything else going on? Anybody?
I spent a lot of time in North Carolina running boogie boards that I got at the dollar store or whatever it was. Those things were just fine.
Yeah, yeah, and you see them, and to be honest with you, even the nicer ones, they do like I had a couple boogie boards when I was living over in Santa Cruz. You know, I got them, and I'd take them out. Laura had one, I had one. We'd just go out and just have some fun in the afternoon or whatever. And then I brought them, you know, when we moved here, you know, they would sit out. We'd use them in the pool. We'd goof around with them and stuff like that. Take them to the beach once in a while. But the heat got to them and delaminated a little bit. So I really do need to invest into another boogie board or even a couple. They are a lot of fun. They are a lot of fun just getting out and playing and so forth. But yeah, that's kind of it on board construction, different characteristics of it. You know, we're talking about fins, stringers, different glass layups. There's some new types of manufacturing. Patagonia makes surfboards now, or at least they did. I don't know if they still are making them, but they were doing sort of a actual mold. It wouldn't be shaped. It would actually, they had a mold that they were doing sort of a resin. They were after making it a little eco-friendly because fiberglass resin emits some pretty ominous fumes and get very fumy. And so, you know, and a lot of waste and stuff like that. It's probably not the best for the environment. So then they're trying to find ways of cleaning that up and make it a little bit eco. So yeah, those types of you know, and then we were talking about the wood boards, which they still make them, and it's an art. It's kind of like the wood canoes, Travis. I mean, there's some guys out there that are putting together some amazing stuff. But yeah, anything else going on? We need to chat before we get on with our Sundays. All right. Yeah, so next week, and I said maybe next week I might see if this could work. But we were going to talk about surf gear, and you're like, surf gear, what gear? There's nothing there. Now we'll be talking about wetsuits. We'll be talking about rash guards, things like that, leashes, different types of waxes, you know, sort of all the accessories. And then I may put that together with the following, which is all about surf brakes. We talk it's more specific, like beach brakes and reef brakes and point brakes and so forth. I might be able to combine those two, but we'll see how that comes together. All right, everybody. I appreciate it. I really do, showing up and listen to me wander around on my all my verbiage and all that good stuff. Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate it. It's always great to see, you know, joining us. And yeah, let's just try to get something together to where we make it over to the beach. So
that would be great.
Yeah.
Dave, I appreciate you, sir. I really do.
Well, thank you so much, you guys.